Welcome to the Homeschool Together podcast. Where one working mom and a stay-at-home dad help you navigate the nuts and bolts of the growing and dynamic world of homeschooling.
With a focus on early learners, like me.
All the ins and outs of building and maintaining your homeschool life.
Homeschool.
Find out tips and tricks to make things like this easier.
I'm reading.
And ultimately, enjoy educating your kids. And what's that last thing?
Have fun together. Did I do good, Daddy?
Yeah, you did, sweetie. Good job. Hello and welcome to Homeschool Together. Thanks so much for joining us. If you have a chance, head down into our show notes below. We'll have links to the podcast and everything today, as well as links to our YouTube channel, growing. And also, if you guys would like to support the podcast, head over to the Gumroad store. We have a brand new resource guide for Asia, chock full of great resources for you guys to use when you guys are touring the world with your Build Your Library or Torchlight combination curriculum. We've just finished our around the world journey. It's in the past, but also forefront in our minds as we continue to make more resource guides and finish out the year. Today, we're going to do a little review for the little-ins. You know, we like to focus on early learners here, but we're going real early this time. So our youngest, as you guys have been following the podcast from the beginning, you lifers, as I'm going to start referring to you guys as, we started with the little one, a very, very little one. I think at the beginning of this podcast, she was probably just under 1 year old. She was just inside 1 year old, and now she is 3, and she is a firecracker.
What did we call her yet? Fiercely independent.
Yes, no,
that's what we said yesterday.
It was fiercely independent, and we want to stress fiercely independent. She is a wonderful, precocious little young girl. Really smart, really, really sharp. Getting all the things down. And one of the things that we wanted to do this summer, when we had a lot more free time, we weren't at the parent partnership and she wasn't at her preschool, her gymnastics preschool that she loves, which she has now just started again. What? Did I hear the angels singing? Yes, I did. No,
2 days a week.
2 days a week.
Just mornings. It's worth it.
It's worth it.
Every cent.
So one of the things this past summer, we're just closing out, is we wanted to do a little bit of a curriculum with her and kind of get her, kind of pre-homeschool with her. And try because one of the things that we've been noticing is that she wanted to do her own homeschool. She wanted to say, I want to do homeschool, Daddy. I want to do homeschool. And one of the things that we did is we interviewed a mother, homeschooling mother, I think sometime last year. I can't remember the name right off the top of my head, but she recommended the Playing Preschool curriculum. Mm-hmm. And it was something that was very interesting. I think right after that episode, we went right out and bought it.
I think that's from the Busy Toddler is what the website is.
Absolutely. And so we went ahead and got that. And this is a great secular curriculum. So if you're looking for a secular preschool curriculum, this may be the one. And we'll go into a lot of depth today about, what this curriculum is and why we liked it. So basically the goal was I wanted to use this curriculum for the summer before we get into something else that we're gonna end up doing.
We had done some of it last year too, so we kind of had to pick back up from where we left off and then finish it off this summer. Yeah,
it was something I wanted to do to kind of fill in the summer. It was kind of a nice thing for her to be able to do. So if you're out there and you're looking at homeschooling, you're real youngin', I think this curriculum runs from anywhere between 2.5 years old to about, I think they say up to 5 years old. I don't know if I do 5 with this.
No, this is a 2 to 3.
2 to 3, 4 years old.
In my mind.
Type of mindset.
I wouldn't classify this as a pre-K, so I think this is definitely solidly in the preschool.
Yeah, and we know we have a few people listening to the podcast who have some really youngins and they're just starting to get into homeschooling. One of the things I liked about this curriculum was that it was a great kind of, it walked you into the idea of being an educator, the idea of providing educational activities to your youngins. And I know a lot of the parents here that are listening, they got a little bit of older kids. This was something that I thought was really well planned out, and we'll get into the structure, and what they do and everything. But it was really well thought out. It had a nice, flow to it, and it helped. I could see it easing somebody into their first homeschooling experience. Or if you have an older student, like I do, who's like 6 or 7, and you're doing all your other curriculums and you're working, and all of a sudden you're like, my gosh, I got to do something with this 2.5-year-old or 3-year-old, and I can't just let them loose to the wild, and all that type of stuff. So but I want to have something that's fun and educational and maybe somewhat entertaining for my older kid to participate in. And that was something that was kind of a wrinkle that I noticed with the Playing Preschool, is that my older daughter kind of liked to sit along with us.
Yeah. And a lot of folks would say, this is too young to start a curriculum. Like, oh, you don't need a curriculum for preschool. And we are 100% with that. You do not need a curriculum for preschool. The reason that we really bought this after looking at the sample was that we just needed preschool ideas. Yeah. It wasn't so much that we felt that our daughter had to have a curriculum. It was that I'm not a preschool teacher, and I didn't want to spend all day on Pinterest coming up with cool like activities, sensory bins, and art and all these different things. I was like, man, they've put together this whole set of cool activities and things that she would do in a preschool type setting, but I could do at home and I didn't have to think of them. Cool. So anyway, that led us down this road.
We'll talk about what's in the program, and then we'll talk a little bit about how we used it at the end. And I think, hearing the two ends of that, I think you'll find that, there's a creativity and a lot of room within the curriculum to do a wide range of anything that you'd like to accomplish, whatever those goals are for you and your young learner. So let's get into it a little bit. It's Playing Preschool is entitled. There are 2 years to this curriculum. And so they kind of, one flows into the next. The creator says that the second year is a prerequisite for the first year is a prerequisite for the second year. I don't know how much of that is true, because while it does build, everything is kind of standalone, but there are skills that they're expecting you to learn in the first one. So if you haven't learned those yet, by the second year, then your learner may be a little bit behind. You may have to do some catch-up work. I don't know how true the prerequisite year is. We didn't do the second year. We were only working on the first year. So, take that as a grain of salt. Figure out what works best for you. I know it's $30 for the first year curriculum, and it's also the same price for the second year. But if you get them together, I think it's $50. So they get a little bit.
This
of a
is
price.
A digital PDF curriculum.
Digital PDF.
You print yourself. Yep. So we took care of printing this cheaply by having it all printed at the library. 70 sheets a week we get for free, and then we put it in a 3-ring binder.
Absolutely. At the beginning of the curriculum, there's about 20 pages of It's a really nice write-up on how to use the curriculum, how it's structured, why it's structured the way it is, how it progresses, what are the skills you're going to be doing, also some additional things like the morning calendar and the letter tile and letter sheets and stuff like that, on how you can use those and incorporate those in. When you read those first 20 pages, it does feel like a lot. Like, oh my gosh, what am I getting myself into? And I think at the end of those 20 pages, I think there's actually a section like, this sounds like a lot. And it can look overwhelming at first. And I think if you did the whole thing and you really stayed to it, it might feel a little overwhelming. And we'll talk a little bit about how you can maybe mitigate some of that, or, just kind of go with the flow. But we'll talk a little bit more about that later. In the first year curriculum and the second year curriculum, it's broken up into 19 units. Each unit is 2 weeks long.
Right.
So
we adjusted some of that ourselves.
Absolutely.
So I think you can definitely stretch them or squeeze them depending on how many of the different pieces of activities you want to take from each subject.
Absolutely, yeah, and that I think that's one of the big takeaways, is that there is a lot to move on this curriculum. Yeah. So in the 2-week period, the curriculum has laid out exactly what you're going to do over those 2 weeks: Monday, Tuesday, Wednesday, Thursday, Friday, and then the second week, Monday through Friday. Really kind of thinking of it as if you're going to preschool every single day, how would you handle that? That can be very daunting because there are multiple layers, and we'll walk through an example section here at the end on kind of what that looks like. That can be a little daunting, thinking like, oh my gosh, every day I have to do something. I'm not even doing that with my older homeschool learner. How can I do that with my younger one? That being said, it only takes about 30 or 40 minutes to do the day's activities. And I even found that the activities, we could do them even faster, especially if you change some of them up. Their recommended activities, like for example, they ask you to get some apples at the beginning for the first unit. It's all about apples. And they want you to get like 12 apples and sort them. Well, I'm not going to go buy $10 worth of apples at the grocery store
just to sort them.
So I got like Legos or number tiles. So you can swap things in. I found a lot of the activities and some of the skills can be swapped in for other types of manipulatives. So you don't have to strictly adhere to that. Now that whole section was about apples. So naturally you'd want to sort apples, but I think the kid can get the gist by just doing some sorting apples Instead of sorting apples, they can sort Legos or math tiles. I was using the math tiles from the Right Start Math kit that they use there, and I was using those as sorting tiles for the apple sorting section. Right.
You could also print out an outline of an apple, color it different colors, and
Exactly.
cut them out and have them sort those too. So I mean, there's multiple ways to go about an activity like that.
Yeah, and so through every single unit, they call that a unit. The 2 weeks, there's a theme to the unit, and that covers 2 weeks. So in all those units, they do cover multiple different subjects. So we do reading, being read to, and also learning letters. They do a little bit of proto-math, basic counting, sorting, things of that nature, pattern building, things of that nature. Also a little bit of science and a little bit of art. So they do kind of touch a little bit of everything. So if you're looking for kind of a well-rounded curriculum that's touching various aspects and getting different ideas on those various subjects, the curriculum does support that. They do a good job of that.
So you talked about the different themes. What are some theme examples of different types?
So I'll walk you through a couple. So basically every 2 weeks is a theme, every unit. The 2 week period is a unit. So I'll just say units. Every unit has a theme, and then it has an associated letter that you're going to learn. Some weeks because there's only 19, they had to double up letters. So some weeks you have 2 letters, and some weeks you only have 1 letter. From year 1 to year 2, they actually follow that same type of pattern where there's a unit and there's a theme associated to it, and then they repeat the letters again. Same letters, and I think in the same order. So you're going to hit those letters twice over that 2-year period. But basically, like if you think about it, okay, apples, they have A is your letter. And then they have like colors, and that's R, the letter R. Then the next one, like nursery rhymes, and then that's the letter N. And then clothing would be like C and J, and then food is M, and then so on and so forth. So they'll have all these themes, and they'll associate a letter to it. So it was really nice how you're kind of like pairing some knowledge or something that is very tangible, something that the kid can touch on a daily basis. They did a really good job at making sure that what you're working on and all the themes, they're very realistic things that the kid can interact with on they'll see on a day-to-day basis, something that they can identify, whether it's clothes, apples, things of that nature.
Yeah, something that they can really see.
Yeah.
So we've talked about the themes. Why don't you walk us through one? Can you give me an idea of the kind of things you're doing? Because you were doing this while I was at work, so I didn't see actually a lot of this. So I'm kind of intrigued to hear about what you guys were doing.
Yeah, so basically every single section is about, in the digital printout, is about 20 pages long. And you can think about, wow, 20 pages for like 2 weeks worth of work. That seems kind of intense, right? But it's actually really well paced and well laid out. So it's giving you all that information. It's not just giving you like a single, when we first heard about this, I thought I'd get like a single sheet. It's like, oh, here, do this week, right? No. It's actually really laid out for you, and they do a really good job at doing this. So for example, the first one is unit 4 is clothing, right? We'll go to a little bit of details. A little summary about what you're going to need that week, what supplies you need, what are the book list. And that was really cool because I could, I would tell you to go get these books, and it would, you would go find those, and then we would, you'd find some additional books as well. So it was.
And how many books, like on average per week? Is it like a couple?
It's like 6, 7, 8 books.
Yeah, like mostly board book styles is what I would request.
Mostly kid books, mostly board books. Actually, I think a lot of them were these like early board books. They were almost board book level.
Yeah, a couple of them I think were like level 1 readers. So for a kid who could read, but obviously you're reading to her, but they were very simplistic in nature.
Absolutely. You have to really gauge how much patience your early learner has with sitting down and listening to be read. And I know that's not true for a lot of parents. Their kids might not want to sit down and listen to a book, but these are shorter books, so a little bit quicker.
Well, and I would argue too that when we started this, our daughter was not really willing to sit for books, and towards the end of it she was, and there was a few of these books that she wanted you to read over and over and over again through the week that she loved. Absolutely.
And then they give you a poem and a song to sing. So that's something that you'll return to throughout the 2 weeks. And then what they do is they give you this beautiful outline day by day for the entire week. Okay. And then there's these major kind of types of activities that you'll end up doing. So read alouds, things to talk about, learning activities, and then an easy activity. And then if you could see it as like almost like a matrix for that week, each one of those items, then gets associated to a day, Monday, Tuesday, Wednesday, Thursday, Friday. So on say on Monday on the read aloud, you'll read the Pete the Cat book. And then on Tuesday, you'll read it again. And then on Wednesday, you're going to read a different book's Caps for Sale Caps for Sale. And then like an animal should definitely not wear clothing on Friday. So you're going to read, 3 different books multiple times through the week. And then there's going to be things to talk about. What is clothing, right? And then the next day you'll introduce the letter C for clothing, right? And you'll have to find the letter C in a book. And then the next day is, what is a cap, like a baseball cap, And so these are very short activities that you could almost do any time. Like you could imagine, and the creator even suggests that, if you don't have the time or your learner doesn't have the patience to sit down and do 40 minutes of preschool activities, because this would not take very long. I found the activities took a lot longer than reading the books and doing these kind of talk about activities. They said you can break it up through the day, 5 minutes here, 5 minutes here, 5 minutes here. So it doesn't have to be a full day commitment, especially if you have, 1 or 2 additional learners that are a lot older that you're trying to do regular curriculums with. You can just peel off 5 or 10 minutes here or there. If your other learners are off doing a workbook activity, you can then go ahead and do something here with them.
So you've got the read alouds that you're going to do over the different days. Then you have some discussion about those, and you were talking about just kind of
learning. Yeah, there's like a learning activity that could be STEM based, math based, could be, art based.
So what are some examples of the learning type activities?
Okay, so in this case, the learning activity, they said clothing sort by color, style, and season. So you can actually take out a bunch of clothes and just start sorting them.
Oh, she loves doing that.
Yeah. A lot of kids love taking their clothes out.
They're dressed. They're all nicely folded.
Exactly.
And they're everywhere.
And then you could basically do, the next one was an alphabet hunt. And then there was another one. It was math. And a lot of times they'll tell you what type of skill you're doing with this. So this one was like math, stacking caps on your head. Like how many can you stack on top of your head if you have a lot of hats, right? Again, these are very fun and playful
and it goes
activities.
with the Caps for Sale
and
story.
What the creator did really here that I really liked is that all the activities, and a lot of times we've had these complaints with some of the bigger curriculums that sometimes the chapter books in the around the world journey didn't always match the theme of the week, right? Every activity here is matching the theme. And so I like how that drives that forward. And as you said earlier, when you're trying to look for activities that associate to a theme, they made a really good job at saying, well, here's a bunch of activities that you can do that are within this theme.
What kind of supplies in general? The things you've mentioned were not things you would need supplies for, but are there a lot of, you listed there was like supplies on the first sheet.
Yeah. So
what does that look like?
So the supplies at the beginning of each unit are called out, and then I think at the beginning in the opening 20 pages, she gives like a master list of all the supplies. Like for example, this one was like about buttons, and then there's more button counting. And then you make a homemade hat, and then you make a sock, with fabric or something of that nature. So there are a lot of things that you can find around the house, especially if they're kind of an arts and crafts nature. If you already have kind of a arts basket like we do, a lot of times I was pulling from that. And listen, if you can't find buttons of different colors or different sizes, then you can do coins. You can do other things, right? Whatever that might be. Or you can even just say, instead of buttons, I'm going to do socks. All of our kids have 500 million socks.
Yeah, they don't have pairs.
And they don't have pairs. You have all these standalone socks. So it's a great activity to sort through your socks. So you can be creative sometimes if you don't have that activity right away. And you don't want to go to the store and just buy buttons for an activity, right? A lot of us may not have that. But if you have a sewing kit and you have buttons in the basket, maybe that's something you can pull out, right? So once that's basically the outline page. And then what they actually do is they break down every single day. So you see like what you got to do for the week, and then you turn the page and you actually go, wow, here's the breakdown for Monday. And so they introduce the topic. There's a lot of guidance here for you as the learner on like what teacher is, what type of questions do you have to ask, and what are the goals you're trying to get out of this activity. And then there's a little bit more of a description on exactly what you're doing and how to do it. Like especially with the art activities, they go into a little bit more depth on how you want to do that, and sometimes they provide pictures. So you're like, well, I don't know what I'm actually doing here. Oh, here's the picture. It's pretty self-explanatory what I need to do here. So they do give you those type of, and they do that for every single day. And then after Friday, They come to another breakout for the following week. So clothing week 2, then you get that whole matrix of what you're doing. So you can use it as a checkbox. So like a lot of times you can just like check it off. Oh, we did that, we did that, we did that. And then again, they go into every single day of exactly what you need to do. And then you're at the end of your unit. You're at the end of your 2-week period.
So you gave some examples of the learning activities. What about the easy activities? Like what's the difference between a learning activity and an easy activity?
So like a learning activity would be something like a math activity, like if you were counting things. Like an easy activity, like a playful activity would be like apple stamping or something of that nature, like something art-based.
Okay.
So there's kind of that split there. And a lot of times with the theme, you tend to use the same materials for a couple days. So you're not doing something completely new every single day. So sometimes those materials will carry forward. Like if you're counting buttons or if you're counting whatever, they'll bring that back in.
So this is very prescriptive. A parent could open this and say like, hey,
Open and
today
go.
is Monday
Yep.
and these are the things I'm going to do. And it's going to walk me through the discussion prompts, the activities, everything that I need to do for this day. Did you feel there was any interpretation needed or was it really just all given to you?
No, it was pretty much given to you right up front. I mean, it was pretty clear. There was a nice script you can run from if you needed that. If you didn't need that, you didn't have to. Oh, I forgot to mention one other thing. They also have the creators' big focus was this calendar. They love doing the calendar, so they have a whole script around the morning calendar and doing that every single day. Like today is September 21st, and it's 2022, and all that type of stuff. And you talk about the day and you talk about the weather and you can sing the days of the week song and you do all this type of stuff. The creator was an actual preschool early education teacher. And so she brought a lot of that learning into this program. So they really focus on doing that morning calendar, especially with those early learners where you're trying to like understand date and time and when things are happening and whatnot. So they stress that. And also with all the letters that you're learning, there's a nice printout of all the letters that go with each unit. And she really stressed doing this kind of artistic creativity around the letters and then putting that into a binder that they can then have at the end of the year. And also something you can revisit along the way.
So this was focused on letter recognition, not really letter sounds, but just knowing that that's an A.
That's an A and everything. And so if you're
all caps.
Yeah, exactly. So they did talk a little bit about lowercase stuff as well. So if you are a phonics family, I think most people are doing phonics focus nowadays. You can then start to do a little bit of phonics recognition along there. And I noticed I did that with my daughter, that we were doing a little bit of early phonics recognition for some of those letters.
Yeah, she was asking, I think she's used to seeing our older daughter.
Yeah.
Yeah, I think she's used to seeing our older daughter do reading with you and do sounding out. And so she wanted that sounding out experience too.
Yeah, she's been really into starting to learn her letter sounds and be able to find those sounds within the books that we read to her, at nighttime and at nap time. So yes, we still nap. Anyway, so that's kind of that was the curriculum in a nutshell. How I ended up using that curriculum was more of a guide, kind of how you were saying earlier. We didn't do it every single day. I found just personally, because I had so much going on, it was very challenging to do it every single day with her. But I did find that, if you know what theme you're on for that 2-week period and you're reading the books and you're doing some of those activities, I found you could bring that stuff back up into regular conversation, reading the books over and over again throughout the week, especially if you couldn't get all the books at your library. Some of the books I don't think we could get. We had to get like secondary books that just like were in the same theme. I know one of them was like the Pinkalicious book or something like that.
It was about apples because we couldn't get all the apple books.
So if you can't get all the apple books, absolutely, consider, reading the books more often instead. So follow the chart, or maybe you just don't have to do the reading for that book that day, and then you do one of the activities. So again, you can shorten or lengthen however you want. I found that I kind of used it as a guidepost. So if I know I needed to have some education today on Monday, Wednesday, Friday, or some type of cadence, I'd pull it out and go, okay, well, I have all the books here. I have these activities here. What do I need this week for this? And I'd pull those activities out, or I'd get them prepped and put them in a basket, and then pull them out when I needed them. And that's really kind of how I used it. And we went through basically the whole summer. We did a number of units to do it, and it was a lot of fun, and we really had a good time.
Yeah, I think it's something that if you have only one child that you're trying to work with curriculum at a time, maybe you either have you have a baby with a toddler, or you have a much older child who works independently, and then you have a toddler. I think this is the kind of thing that you could really, you could do the full-time preschool thing. We didn't have time to do all of that. But what I liked was that you were able to just take the pieces that you wanted and still found so much value. Because I think it's nice that they give you the activities. You didn't have to look up what you're going to do for art.
Yeah.
And you didn't have to
like
try to figure it out.
I like how it's all themed together. And I found at the
makes a good impression.
Yeah, I found at the beginning of the whole experience that my learner was a little bit more, while she was wanting to do homeschool, she really didn't know if she wanted to do it. And I think by the end, I have another toddler kind of scholastic book that she really started to get into as well. And I saw her just wanting to gravitate towards materials and doing learning and wanting to have that stimulation on a regular basis. I found pairing this curriculum with, just general activities and general, learning stuff that we tend to do with like Legos and coloring and art and painting and all that stuff, and just kind of folding in this type of activity. Like, for example, I remember one of the earlier lessons about apples. I didn't have any of the materials to do the stuff for the day, and I said, hey, let's just do painting today, and let's paint apples. Let's paint different color apples, right? And again, that's just a way to say, okay, I have the unit in my head. I want to reinforce the unit that we're working on. The curriculum's right there for you. And if you can't get to that activity today, or you don't have what you need for that, okay, I can just kind of adapt to something else, right? Or if we're doing Play-Doh, you can make an apple with Play-Doh, right? Those are the types of things you can do that are alternatives to what the daily activities are. But I liked the fact that I had some type of structure that I was following. And, if at the end of the first week, you can do 2 weeks worth of content, or you can do most of the activities through the two things, great. Close it down, go to the next lesson.
You can also just pick out, you basically have 10 days worth of activities and readings that you can do. Yeah. So you can kind of pick and choose what works for you, what supplies you have. Yeah. I loved how hands-on this was. And the little bits of it that I caught was very hands-on.
Yeah, it was a big focus on the design of the curriculum, that it was very hands-on and very interactive. You're not doing workbooks, you're not doing like, print out sheets and stuff like that. This is all very tactile, so if you're a fan, if you know that your older learner is kind of a tactile learner, and you have this younger kid that's kind of going in that direction, this is a great curriculum to kind of give you a lot of ideas around, play-based learning, learning through doing art, science, math, but things with like manipulatives, and you're not doing any worksheets. I thought my daughter would like to do worksheet type of stuff because she seemed to be really into books a lot more, like workbook type of stuff. She's not. She just thinks she does, and she really likes to do more play-based stuff.
Yeah, those young learners are pretty kinesthetic in general. In general, at this point, even though, and we really thought that about our older daughter, and now that she's older, she really likes some workbook pages. So it's kind of funny how they grow into different things. But this was nice that it gave you so many different ideas, and I think it's basically screen-free, right? There's no real videos mentioned that I think.
No, I didn't see any videos at that time. No, so it's really just books and play-based.
Yeah,
if you can think about it, like you could almost imagine that you were running your own preschool.
Yeah.
And that this would be the curriculum that you use with, 10 or 12 kids, right? You're all doing the same activities and stuff. A couple other points. It's evergreen. The creator calls it evergreen, which means it's not time sensitive. So you're not having to do the fall unit in the fall. So basically all the units can be done. You can start anytime you want. You can do any unit you want. They don't like you to mix and match because there is a progressive learning that is occurring. There's a expectation that you are, improving along the way from say basic counting to sorting, to groups of 3s and 5s and things of that nature. So you don't want to go and pull lesson 15 and then do lesson 2 because there's a learning path along the way, and it does get more complex over time. And I noticed that the skills that they were asking the learners to do over that, the start of the year to, the start of the summer to the end of the summer, it did require you to go in order. So, but they were smart enough to make the curriculum not be time sensitive. So you can start it anytime you want.
Yeah, which is great too, because you don't have to fight for books at the library.
Yeah, exactly. So basically Playing Preschool for me if you are looking for entertaining, well thought out, well planned, just basically spoon feeding it to you.
Chock full of activities.
Lots of great ideas. You can't go wrong. It's $30. You print it off, put it in a binder. We had it in a binder. I had, a bookmark, and I just opened up to that week's thing, and we got the books from the library, and it was pretty much playing, plug and chug and just do it. If this is your first time homeschooling, if you're starting with like your 3-year-old, it might be a little overwhelming as an educator because it's your first steps into it and just feels so vast.
Mm-hmm.
Take a deep breath. It's not a lot of work. It does look like you have a lot of planning activity and everything. Just know that you don't have to do every single activity the way it's described. You can adapt and change based on the materials that you have and the access to whatever books or, art materials or whatnot. So you don't have to do exactly that. So if you're getting into it and it gets a little scary, just take a deep breath. You don't have to, you don't have to work too hard.
Right. One of the things I liked about this one is that it's the only one that I saw that went down to 2. And we did do several modules of this when she was 2.
Well, she was essentially 2, yeah.
And it was fine. It was totally fine. She wasn't willing to sit for mini books, but she would sit for a couple of board books, but she loved all the activities. And this was the youngest thing that I could find. We wanted to start doing some hands-on things with her, and she was interested to have some schooling time of her own. But I think, when you're putting so much of your mental planning and capability into your older learner, that that takes more thought process to make sure that those lessons are great. I kind of didn't have a lot left to be creative when I was planning for her, and then I saw this and I thought, this is great because we can take what we want from it. We can take all these activities, we can just do random activities if we want, or we can do themes, which she ended up really liking. We can pull books if we want to.
Well, and
that was great.
One of the big concepts that they wanted to reiterate is that you have the scope, and there's a sequence involved in doing these things. But the fact that you're doing a theme and you're returning to that theme over a given period of time, it really kind of accentuates the learning, and it drives home the concept. You're not doing this for mastery. They're not trying to master, 1,200 different apples or know every different type of clothing. It is experiential, and you're learning through experience, but it's also identifying things within the home, within their life that they will encounter. And then they can show off that they know things, like, oh, I know those apples, or I know that clothing, or I know how to measure things with a ruler, or whatever that might be. They experience it, they enjoy it, and then they go out in the world and they see it, and they have that confidence that they know what that thing is.
Right, they can demonstrate it.
They can demonstrate it.
After doing the colors theme, our daughter she got
Boom.
Colors right away, and now she's very happy to tell everybody what color everything is. And so that was really fun. I think it was a really good program from what I saw of the outputs of it, of the art that she did, of how positively she talked about it, how she wanted me to even read some of the books to her at night at bedtime. I thought it was really good.
She enjoyed the whole idea of her school, her homeschool. She gets to do the things she would love talking about every theme that she was doing and telling mommy when she came home from work, oh, I was doing this in homeschool and that type of thing. So really nice.
Yeah, it was a fun introduction, I think, and gives you a lot to work with if you only have one and you can focus all your energy on doing preschool each day, or if you just want to pick some activities here and there and, take some and leave some. I think it works kind of both ways. So I think it was a really great way to start her homeschooling journey for our little one. So we hope that if you have a really young learner, you're looking for something, you might check this one out. We think I think this is great. I would highly recommend that folks check it out.
And the key thing is a nice secular curriculum. So it's, secular preschool, early preschool curriculum. Couldn't go wrong with it. $30 just for the ideas alone and a lot of the themes and just getting that structure, I think is worth it. So absolutely would recommend Playing Preschool.
Thanks so much for joining us today and making us a part of your homeschool journey. Please engage with us on social media. Join our Homeschool Together podcast group on Facebook and find us at Homeschool Together Podcast on Instagram. We'd love to hear your feedback, questions, and recommendations. Until next time.
Happy homeschooling!